All right, so BluPants, the goal for this project, it's a completely open source project. And we're talking about here ChiPy January 2024. Hopefully this presentation will ensure we'll have a ChiPy January 2055, because the idea here is to bring kids and more people to learn Python in a more fun way. Who is Marcelo? I'm a product security engineer. I've been doing this for the last 20 years. My goal is to reduce friction between developers and the security team. I've been on the developer side on a full-time job, so I know how it feels when the security guys comes to delay your sprint. So I've been on the both sides of the aisle. So my job is to frictionless is impossible, but to at least make the security requirements to the dev teams to make sense. So that's it. I always do some research. I have some white papers on Medium. And I have two open source projects. Today we're going to be talking about BluPants. The other one is a Nosy. It's a data loss prevention security scanner. And it's funny, this one, on two previous jobs, I was doing the same thing over and over again. And then I decided, why not just create something open source so I can use in the future if I wanted. So that was the story behind this scanner. Okay, but let's talk about BluPants today. So BluPants, it's an environment, actually a kind of web-based IDE, where kids, people that are starting with programming can start coding even without having any coding background. You just use the robots and use those drag and drop blocks to build your code. The concept, it's platform agnostic, so it works on any browser, smartphones, tablets, whatnot. And there are only two requirements for you to add so here we have bots today, because it's what makes more sense, but you could use any IoT device. Inside this box here, I have a claw that I decided to not turn on because we are having some issues with the network. But anyways, there are only two requirements if you want to add a new device, IoT device to the platform. So requirement one, it has to connect to the internet and communicate through the internet. And the second requirement is it has to run Python. So if you have those two requirements, we're going to cover later on the demo today how to create a new device, a brand new, and add to the platform. So components, obviously, as I mentioned, the IDE. It's web-based. You don't need to install anything, and you don't even need to use that specific IDE that we have, because it's very decoupled. You can use the REST API directly and create your own IDE if you wish. And again, it's all open source. And the idea, the inspiration behind this, we added this project to the Hour of Code on code.org, and I wanted to make something that kids that were already playing with those challenges, those coding challenges on a screen, they could also do something physical with the bots. So it's very similar challenges. Rather than navigating your character through a maze, you could navigate a bot like those ones that we have on the table. And the bots that we have, they are, most of them are open source. The focus is open source. So they are based on Linux and Python, as I mentioned. But one cool thing is also the hardware is open source. So here tonight I have some Raspberry Pis and BeagleBone based ones, but you could use whichever you want. And I think that's important for this project, because if you want to engage kids, it's nice if they maybe they start coding, but then they want to dig further to the hardware or the OS and learn Linux and everything, right, on a single platform. And again, it also supports commercial robots. I brought one Lego EV3 for instance. But again, you can add anything that you want. So it's cloud-based, so we have a kind of Flask app running with that REST API that I mentioned, and that's all you need. You can use a browser for this IDE that we have, but again, you can create your own if you want. The setup, here I say it's simple, but that's the most annoying thing, to be honest. And I created this QR code. I have a video here showing how it works. So you go to the BluPants.org, the IDE, you can generate, and then you type your Wi-Fi configuration. It generates the Y code, QR code, and then the bots will try to connect and search. And that's what they're actually doing right now. And it's disappointing because I wanted that Wi-Fi router to work. It's not working for some reason, and they are moving the camera trying to find the QR code to some live Wi-Fi network. So when they see one, they automatically connect, and then you don't have to do. This is helpful if you're bringing those bots on different schools, and especially the Raspberry Pi you could connect on a monitor with keyboard, etc. But the big old ones, it's more challenging. So if you can just connect through the camera, it's easier. That's why I did this, and maybe I should try this tonight. Okay, what about the REST API? So all those block comments that we have on screen, for instance, here we have on the left panel, move forward, move backwards, turn left, turn right, and then close the claw. This is nothing but you just post a post request to this endpoint here with some Python code. So here we have the turn left command, and as you can see here, we have the very simple post command that will make this command run on the bot. And another cool that is another feature is you can start with kids that are even pre-readers. When we went to your school, you were first grade maybe, or yeah, but there were kindergarten kids there. They don't even know how to read yet, right? But they could play with the blocks and have fun with the bots moving forward, grabbing the blocks and all that stuff. And under the hood, it's generating Python code. For instance, for the middle schoolers, we transitioned to the second mode there, where you have more sophisticated commands, you have loops, you have if statements, you can create functions and variables. So that would be next step. And I haven't tried with college students or professionals, but the idea here is, and from there, you can switch to your own IDE. Here I have a visual code, but those bots they also support the Cloud9. For instance, the Big Old Blue, it's already comes with the Cloud9 environment setup. And for the Raspberry Pi, I added the Cloud9 to the SD card image. And one other thing, those bots are analogous. So if I solve a challenge with this one on the table and then I flip the bot, it's the same thing. With the same code, they will do the same thing, right? And the idea is, I wanted the kids to, if they want, they could bring the bots home, or they could build their own robot. On the links that I'm going to show later, I created Hackster.io tutorials, step by step, how you can build any of those bots there. So you can have fun maybe coding, but if you want to, you can also have fun with your kids trying to build your own bot, or maybe trying one of those, and use maybe with a reference. And the project, so this is the idea behind the project. It's like a training wheels for coding, right? So when the kids, they start riding bikes, they don't want to use training wheels forever, but it makes the experience, at least initially, much more enjoyable. They don't fall all the time. But eventually, the goal is not to use the training wheels forever. You want to start enhancing your skills. At some point, you don't want to use the training wheels anymore. So that's the same thing about BluPants. The goal is for people to use BluPants and not to use BluPants anymore. So that's the idea behind it. So let's try a live demo. But before we start, one thing that I wanted to mention, because you guys can join the network if the network works. I'm having issues. I did a tethering with my cell phone. It's not working for some reason. But this is the trusted boundary. So all those devices, when you add a device to the BluPants network, it's actually it's an actual remote code execution. So be aware of that. And that's not a bug, it's a feature. I wanted the kids to explore, to have root access to the devices, because at the end of the day, I have SD cards on those bots, and when I finish the class, I just switch the SD card, and we are good to go. So if some kids want to explore and start playing games and SSH to the bots, and that's actually great, right? That's the goal of the thing. I wanted them to explore. That's why it's nice that those platforms are completely open source, because I wanted them to break it. So, but be aware of that. We are going to do a demo where, if you want, you can add your laptop as a robot, because as you mentioned, we only have two requirements: connected to the internet and Python. So you can make your laptop become a BluPants robot if you want, and we can try that tonight. So this is so you can scan the QR code and get all those, if you want to play, all those URLs. The Wi-Fi that I'm using right now for those bots is the BluPants Wi-Fi, and the password is robot for fun. The source code is on GitHub. If you want to create your own robot, I also have all the SD card images available, so you don't have to start from scratch. If you have a Raspberry Pi, maybe you just want to use the image that I have already available there. And we have some challenges, the slide deck, some videos, the challenges from the hour of code. You could play with your kids as well. But again, this is just a starting point, just something so you can have an idea. But I encourage everybody that wanted to play with the project to do your own stuff. So let's see. Oops. Let's see if the network is working. Let's get Thomas to try. No, this one is too easy. Maybe this one. Let me see if the network is one of those bots. They're connected, because I saw. Oh, what's the password? Let's see here. Yeah, I think it's gonna work. Let's see. Okay, cool. So Thomas has the IDE on his phone. So, and if you guys want to join the network and open BluPants.org, you are going to be able to see the bot too. So let me get the IP address for that one, which is, let's see, which one is this one? This one. Okay, so for some reason that one connected, the others didn't. But anyway, so What Thomas has to do is he needs to grab the block, go around the cone, deploy the block there, and move away from the block. So let's see, Thomas. Pressure on you now. Yeah, you have to stay there. So otherwise, it's going to be all inverted. So stay there from there, the point of view. Yes, there actually.
So does the REST API basically BluPants sends like where's the server like?
Yeah. So the server, what it does, it's a kind of it's a remote code execution like. So I'm security engineer, so we use a lot sometimes reverse shells. It's easier to do a reverse shell than doing the on some cases. So what I do, yeah. So the server is actually waiting for stuff to be posted. And then the robot is actually asking the server, hey, what should I execute? And if there is nothing on the queue, the robot doesn't do anything. But once Thomas clicks send, click play on that IDE, it's going to submit a post request with a Python code to the queue. And then eventually the bot, which is constantly doing some GET requests from the queue, will get the code. Okay, Thomas, if you're ready, click play. Let's see. Oh, the table was too short. Okay. Well, that is this kind of thing you can't solve with code, unfortunately. But yeah, and good job, Thomas. So yeah, and if you want to play with that and go bring it to your kids in school, whatnot, I have several hints to make it easier. So for instance, one thing that I did, I went to Home Depot and they sell some plywood, and then I created this matrix here with so one other thing that I didn't cover, you have a JSON on the root folder of those bots that you can change, you can calibrate. You can change the scale for the blocks and everything. And depending on the surface, you can correct the drifts and everything. So when you say turn right, it will do a 90-degree turns and things like that. So yeah, there are a lot of things that I learned from trying and failing, doing those live experiments. But yeah, there's a lot. If you want to try and if you want to reach out, please, I'll be super excited to if people wanted to try this out. Yeah, so that was so the REST API. So here is a very simple example. Unfortunately, this computer is not connected on the network, and if I do that, I would gonna break the, the, the shared screen, correct? If I connect to that Wi-Fi. Okay, I will not do that, but this is how simple. And here I use a Curl example just to be platform agnostic. But of course, you're under the hood on those bots. I implement this in Python. And if you don't want to start from scratch here on the GitHub, I put this send bluepantscode.py as an example. Thomas's code there was way more complex than this one. This one, for instance, is just telling on the payload the robot to turn right and turn left and then turn right. That's the payload, and then we are sending here. On this next slide, what I do, I get unfortunately I can't do tonight with this laptop, but I'm just sending the payload to this mycode.py, which could be anything. And one thing that is important to show, so how do you know what is the code that you can send there? So some stuff, let's see if it works even if I don't have a network here. Yeah, it doesn't. But when you're connected, if you do something like this, robot move forward, and then you click, yeah, it doesn't work. You need a robot here. The IP address would show here. But here, it would, this is Python now. So robot dot move forward. Oops. Here is Python code. And if those blocks that I had on the previous screen, when I transition to the Python screen, it will translate the blocks to Python. So if you're learning, it's easier. You create a function, you create an if statement and things like that, you see how the real code looks like. But here on the setup, we have two things. You can generate the QR code to connect the robots if you, maybe it's helpful on your class. And then you just put the robot camera looking here. Another hint is those cameras are very cheap. They are not like cell phone cameras. So here it would work fine, but on the video that I have doing on the iPad, if there are some reflexes, sometimes it get tricky. You have to move the iPad until the robot can process the QR code. So usually what I tell the teachers is to just maybe print it, put it on the wall or somewhere close to the robot. It's easier. And the other thing that I wanted to show is here you also have the documentation. So if you are creating a code that you want to send without the IDE, here you have the documentation with all supported functions from BluPants. What else? And here, I don't know, I don't want to do this live, but you can try. So here what I'm doing, I created, on my laptop, I had, do we have PyCharms here or some IDE? Okay, no, that's fine. But so what I created a branch here, ChiPy. And on that branch, what I did, I created a new robot using the PyTurtle. Are you guys familiar with the turtle? So what you can do here, and you can try at home, you can make your laptop become a BluPants robot. But of course, your laptop's not going to move, but the PyTurtle is going to do it. So, and then you have an idea. The idea behind this branch is, if you have a new platform that you find, oh, this is cool, I want to make it, I want to leverage BluPants and make the kids, easier for the kids to code that platform, use this ChiPy branch as a starting point. So you see how which files I created. It's super simple. I have a robot hollow class that even if you don't implement all the commands, it's not going to do anything. So, and then you can start implementing function one by one to your platform, whatever. For instance, here moving forward for this bot is actually moving forward. Here I have a claw inside this this box, and it's stationary. It's a 6 degree of freedom claw. So I decided to play rather than having squared quadrants. I move the angle, and when I move forward, all the servos moving away, that they are reaching further from the to grab some Legos or whatever. So that's the cool thing. So we have this template, this class, the robot hollow, that you can or cannot implement all the functions. You can implement only those things that make sense and you wanna play with. But it's actually super simple. You create a new class, register that class, a factory will build it for you, and it's already on the BluPants client here, which is nothing but a loop that does what I explained earlier. It's going to be requesting from the AWS service, hey, what should I execute next? And it's that simple. So that's how it works. And that's it, guys. Hopefully, we'll have ChiPy 2055 with a lot of new Python enthusiasts. And if you want to reach out to me, that's my email. And yes, questions.
Everything that you said here would be idea of the PyMac, Magpie magazine.
Do you think so?
Raspberry Pi has Magpie.
Do you think they would like it? Okay, I'll try it.
Put up as a video. It happens in it all over it. I mean, they love this stuff, and also
Fake.
you've got all of the you have all of the components there, which are cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Over in at least in California, there's a lot of surplus Pi that nobody's got sitting around in. They bought them, but they didn't use them. Trying to get them and put them into school.
Really? Because the other day, I think it was a couple of months.
They're just sitting there.
Wow.
I've got Raspberry Pis coming to my house, and I didn't realize there was a sort of glut, so I just put them in a box. I tried to give them to a Chicago public school, and they wouldn't take them.
They've got nobody that could use them.
Well, the end product, which is strangely enough, that's why the Pi was developed, was to reintroduce computer science to school kids. So Magpie, you might want to think about.
I'll try that for sure. Any questions? Oh, yes.
So you mentioned that all the robots can do all the things, right? Like the same code works across different types of robots.
Yes.
How do you do that? And like when you add a new thing, do you have to add it to all the robots?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Definitely.
Let me bring the mic too.
Okay. So you mentioned that when all the same code works for different types of robots,
Yes.
right? So that does mean when you want to add like a new feature to a robot, you have to add it to all the different robots? Or do you try not to add a new feature as the other half?
Yes, yeah. Good question. So if you want to add a completely new feature, what I would recommend, so this robot hollow class that you're going to find, you wouldn't need to add a new this new function there. And the existing robots would just skip it. Actually, when you execute something that doesn't exist, there is a kind of standard out on the GUI, and it's gonna just say function whatever is not implemented, but the execution will go forward. But if for your robot that has the implementation, then it will execute it. Actually, that's the easy part. The hardest thing is you probably would want to have a block here, right? That would represent your new function. And then you would have to change. Oh, so I'm back-end engineer. Maybe for front-end guys, that would be the fun part, but for me, that's the hard part, right? So that's the thing. You would also need to come to the GUI and add a new block there, so the kids would be able to drag and drop your new function. Yep. I thought about creating some generic block that, yeah, so yeah, it's
good to be restrictive.
You had a.
So is the backend server like on the cloud, or is it within the network? Do you use a master worker architecture, or is it peer-to-peer?
It's master worker. So it's ridiculously simple. It's a for loop on AWS that creates a queue with code based on your external IP address. So how the code doesn't get mixed. So if you see the API when I showed, you have to say, hey, execute this payload for this robot IP address, which is a internal, a private IP address. But this private IP address also has the router external IP address. So when it gets to the AWS, it's going to create a queue for your public IP address and the private one for each robot, a queue for each one. So that's how they don't get mixed. And then your bot will just keep asking, sending GET requests, and then the AWS process the request and say, oh, okay, this is the robot private IP address that came from that public network, and then it searches the queue and send it back. That's all the backend does.
Do you use the MQ or is it just once?
No, it's just some. So this thing started growing more. Yeah, so you know what? Yeah, we've been there, right? It now at this point needs some refactoring for sure. You're gonna see a lot of ugly code behind this thing. I'm not ashamed of that.
So not ZMQ.
No, yeah. It's actually a Python queue with, yeah, it's just a list.
No, it's just that when you were saying about the complexities, everything was pub sub, you know, it's a proxy. That's, sorry. I apologize. I understand.
Yep. You had a further question?
Well, yeah, I was just curious, like, how do you handle complexity with like the subnet mask, like dealing with when you're dealing with like public internet, sometimes there's like variable length subnet mask. Do you have to worry about that, or is that?
Yeah, so that's why I do this thing here that I did tonight. I tether from my cell phone, and if you are behind, I haven't tested yet, but that would break it. Yes. Yeah. So again, some refactoring and some more scalable approach would be, and that's why it's open source. Anybody could jump in and yeah. This is just the starting point. Yes.
Is this small enough to run on the AWS free tier?
No, I'm paying, but I think for the front end and everything, it's only $20 per month. I've been spending. Yeah, it's not free tier, unfortunately. It was, and then I actually didn't even pay attention when I started. I didn't use it. I was not paying anything, but now they are charging me 30, and I didn't even look. I think it's worth it. That's what I'm trying to say. Yes.
Yeah, speaking of being worth it, I'm curious if you thought about doing things, this is all open source,
Mm-hmm.
have you thought about either making and selling robots to, like, the abstract commercial side of it? Is that interesting at all to you? Or leading workshops, paid workshops?
Yes, I thought about it. And to be honest, I'm not good at it. So yeah, so I went to 1871, but that was before COVID. That was another thing. One thing that delayed this project and made me a little bit frustrated was the pandemic, because I was able to go to schools and everybody was super excited. And then when the pandemic hit, nobody wanted to touch anything. And then I said, you know what, I just switched it to some other projects but you're right. Yeah, if I had a background or somebody that has it and want to partner, we could try it. That I think that would be cool.
Well, there's a friend of mine owns brokerage. And they used to have a segment called Bootstrapping in America.
Uh-huh.
So if you give me your email address, I'll send it over there and see if they.
Awesome. My email address.
I think the site was tastylive.com, and they have a segment called Bootstrapping in America.
Okay.
It's not just for profit, it's
Do you have a business card or somehow? Oh, okay. Okay, thank you guys.